Hi, Doug Stworski for the U.S. Access Institute, LLC. Today we look at one specific element in our lesson series called Accessibility by the Element. That's where we take a quick look at the accessibility requirements and one specific element. We also do a comparison of the different ADA and state access codes and standards. We try to cover it from coast to coast. Remember, our goal is eliminating the confusion and access compliance. So check us out at www.usaccessinstitute.com. Okay, here we go. First, we start with the periodic table of accessible elements. It's not a real table in the Access standard sense of things, but hey, we want to make access fun. We start as we always do in the 2010 ADA standards for accessible design. Next, we drill down to section 104.2, and that covers calculation of percentages, the topic of today's video. Section 104.2 is covered in two parts. The first part reads where the required number of elements or facilities to be provided is determined by calculations of ratios or percentages and remainders or fractions result. The next greater whole number of such elements or facilities shall be provided. Here we have an example. We are using section 212.3 on sinks, and it states where sinks are provided at least 5%, but no fewer than one of each type provided in each accessible room or space shall comply with 606, and that's the technical section for sinks. So in this example, we will say that 4 sinks are provided. 5% are required to be accessible, so we multiply 4 sinks by 5%. The answer is 0.2 sinks are required to be accessible. We are determining the required number of elements, in this case sinks, that are accessible. The calculation results in a fraction of 0.2 or 2/10 of a sink. Since section 104.2 tells us we use the next greater whole number. So in this case, it is 1. 1 sink is required to be accessible. Okay, in example 2, we have 24 sinks are provided. So 24 sinks times 5% that are required to be accessible equals 1.2 accessible sinks are required. So again, because we are determining the required number of elements, in this case sinks, that are to be accessible, the calculation results in a fraction of 1.2 or 1 2/10 of a sink. Section 104.2 again tells us we use the next greater whole number. So in this case, it is 2. So 2 sinks are required to be accessible. In example number 3, we have 32 sinks that are provided. And again, we are determining the number of sinks required to be accessible. 32 sinks times 5% that are required to be accessible equals 1.6 accessible sinks are required. So again, we use the next greater whole number. So in this case, it is 2. 2 sinks are required to be accessible. All right, so now back to section 104.2, and the second part is, it reads, where the determination of the required size or dimension of an element or facility involves ratios or percentages, rounding down for values less than 1/2 shall be permitted. All right, so on to example 4, and here we're using section 804.6.6 on refrigerator and freezers. It reads, combination refrigerator and freezers shall have at least 50% of the freezer space 54 inches maximum above finished floor. So in this example, we have a freezer with 48.5 square feet. 50% is required to be below 54 inches. So we take the 48.5 square feet available and multiply it by 50% to find out how much space is required to be below 54 inches. In this example, we find we need 24.25 square feet. But we are determining the required size of a dimension or an element, in this case, the freezer area, and we just read that rounding down for values less than 1/2 shall be permitted. And since 0.25 is less than half, we can round down to 24 square feet required to be below the 54 inches. Okay, example number 5. In this example, we have a freezer with 49 square feet available. 50% is required to be below 54 inches. So again, we take the 49 square feet available and multiply it by 50% to find out how much space is required to be below 54 inches. In this example, we find we need 24.5 square feet. But we are determining the required size or dimension of an element, in this case, freezer area, and the size Rounding down for values less than half shall be permitted. And since 0.5 is not less than half, we cannot round down, and we must round up to 25 square feet is required. Well, that wraps it up for a calculation of percentages. Thanks for watching. And remember that here at the U.S. Access Institute, LLC, our goal is eliminating the confusion in access compliance. Check us out at www.usaccessinstitute.com.